speakers, but let's go around the table and let each one of you introduce yourself and what your interest in environmental adjudication is, or environmental law. Thank you. And to the extent you want to use a microphone, we can pass a microphone around. We can start maybe over this table and pass the mic along. Just introduce yourself and what interest you have in this topic, and then we'll get suggestions for our next steps. The speakers don't get double duty.
Oh, shoot. I'm Sandy Zelberg, University of Nebraska in the United States. I teach environmental law, natural resources law, and my primary focus in my work is water law. And I'm very interested in not only adjudication, but post-adjudication implementation, how things actually work on the ground.
Hi, my name is Alejandro Rossi. I am Executive Director of Ecoyuria, an NGO of Argentina. My main interest in this topic is all which has to do with implementation, because we have a lot of excellent regulation in Argentina, but still being very tough to get it implemented.
Hello, my name is Faisal Aturki. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I'm an SGD student at Pace University. My thesis, inshallah, will be about implementation in Saudi Arabia, about the law and the regulation in my country. And thank you.
Hello, my name is Mitsu Takahashi. I'm from Japan, and I teach and do research on wildlife law in Japan. And adjudication is, I've been quite ignorant on adjudication, but and I haven't studied adjudication, but somehow adjudication is getting quite a lot of highlight in Japan right now, especially for how to cope with the claims after a nuclear disaster. So yeah, it's been a pretty hot issue right now. Thank you. Also I have to note that I used to be a former student of Lin Hao in this club also. Thank you.
And Faisal is a former student of American Right.
Yes.
My name is Roland D'Souza. I am an electrical engineer by profession. I'm from Pakistan, a country that's having continually reducing rate of law. I'm a member of an environmental NGO in Karachi.
I'm Bernard van Heusden from Belgium, Hasselt University, which is a small university in Belgium. And as an academic in general, I was interested in what you had to tell about adjudication, and also specifically on the green courts or environmental courts discussion, to hear your visions about it.
Right, I'm Ko King Nen of the Asia Pacific Center for Environmental Law, which was established by the law faculty, CEL, and NIC played a very important part, and also UNEP. Right now, in this particular seminar, I'm very interested in how we can expand the pool of expertise to share with judges. Judges do not want to be trained, but sharing experiences. So maybe we can discuss in this group whether we can play a role, whatever role we can, because you lamented the fact that there are very few expertise after the likes of yourself and Nick. Can we not rope in judges? Do they feel embarrassed? What are the obstacles? If we get retired judges like Junior W. Day to be involved in the teaching network, so perhaps we might consider.
Hello, I'm Danny Valenzuela from the Philippines. I also teach law, but I'm here as a representative of a member organization of ICN, the Foundation for the Philippine Environment. And one of the major program now of my organization is environmental defense. So I'm very much interested in adjudication and enforcement.
Hello, I'm Lai Ling Hing from Singapore, also with the Asia Pacific Center for Environmental Law. In fact, she's the director and I'm the deputy. I've been teaching environmental law for many years, and I've been very privileged to have the Mahaguru, Professor Nick Robinson, as my co-teacher. We've been teaching a course on comparative environmental law through video conferencing for many years. And we also co-teach a course at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies in Comparative Environmental Law. I also chair a master's in environmental management, which is multidisciplinary, and it's hosted by the School of Architecture. We call it the School of Design and Environment. And we are constantly on the lookout for students. So I hereby make an appeal. If you know anyone who's interested in a master's course on environmental management, it's multidisciplinary. The student can come from any discipline. We've got a lot of engineers, a lot of architects, etc., even 2 veterinary surgeons and some lawyers. So they are welcome to apply. Send me an email, or you can get my name card. So I'm interested in this course because it's part of teaching in environmental law and management. And it's very unlikely Singapore is going to have environment course. We don't have major environmental problems. But I think it's very important from a comparative law perspective. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rodney Allen. I'm a public interest lawyer based in Geneva, Switzerland, and I focus on international fora that can be used to help individuals enforce their environmental and human rights. And I'm here to see how internationals, even though there isn't an international environmental court yet, and that's still a dream in the future, but how what's out there can be used to fill in some of the gaps of domestic courts and domestic law.
I'm Sheila Vega. I'm from Paraguay. I already presented myself, the outgoing term. But I have been working with judges for more than 20 years in my country and in the Mercosur. And although I share some of the concerns that Antonio raised today, I still think we need to train them, we need to give a lot of expertise to them. I'm not really sure how we're going to address some of these issues, but I'm totally pro continue exploring the avenues.
I'm Antonio Benjamin, Deputy Chair of IUCN.
And also a candidate for the chairmanship. So.
Yeah. How do you say when someone is sewing your chair?
Yeah, Antonio Fosa again. I have a list of people who will join the Global Legal Action here.
Would you like to join everybody else?
Karen, what are you doing there?
We're all alone, Karen.
Let's fill out this back table.
Yeah, or you guys
Okay, let's focus here, please. We have another introduction here.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. I'm Anjali Sampai from Thailand. I work for National Parks, Wildlife and Land Conservation in the position of Forestry Technical Officer. I finished my study about forestry in bachelor degree and master degree in forest management. My division in about my work is planning division. Today, Thailand have problems about law enforcement because our country have a large protected area. So I like the topic of this campus. It is useful for Thailand. Thank you very much.
My name is Carl Brooke. I'm co-director of international programs at the Environmental Law Institute with Jay Pendergrass, and I am co-chair of the IUCN Cell Specialist Group on Armed Conflict and Environment. I'm particularly interested in this session because the post-conflict period offers an opportunity to rebuild a country, to change things that aren't working, to build or reform institutions. And many of the governance challenges in countries revolve around natural resources. And so if you're trying to improve governance in post-conflict contexts, there's a lot of institutional reform. And so there's an interesting question here about how do you build capacity of the judiciary? Is there something different about judicial reform in post-conflict countries than in regular developing countries?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ken Markowitz, the Managing Director of the International Network for Environmental Compliance and Enforcement, as well as a professor at the Washington College of Law, teaching class in compliance and enforcement, and a practicing environmental lawyer. I'm very interested in the topic of adjudication from several standpoints, not only in the judicial training capacity, but the linkages between the judiciary, the prosecutors, and the inspectors to complete the enforcement chain. We're trying to build capacity all along that continuum. And it's a pleasure to be here today.
Hello, my name is Gustavo Flores. I come from Mexico. I am with the Mexican Environmental Law Center, or Centro Mexicano de Derecho Ambiental in Mexico City for the last 19 years. I also teach environmental law at Ibero University, Universidad Iberoamericana in Mexico City. And my main concern is, as many of you have said before, is the lack of effective enforcement and compliance of environmental laws. In this case in Mexico, what I see, it's everywhere.
Well, we basically have two objectives for the discussion. So one is to come up with priorities that you would like to see the Commission on Environmental Law and those who are environmental law and others going to be addressing. What is it that are the most important things that a judicial capacity building exercise could begin to do? Is it to work with the existing new courts that have just come into existence? Is it to take judicial systems that are unable to enforce the law effectively and build up their capacity? We'll have opposition to what we want to do too. It's not clear that everyone wants environmental law enforcement in the courts. And so we're going to have to deal with systems that don't believe this is necessary, or because they don't want to change the existing paradigms want it. And then so it's a combination of what are the highest priorities that you think we should undertake, and what are the options for dealing with obstacles. And Gustavo Flores has been a real pioneer in shaping answering both these questions in Mexico.
Let me say a word, and I would like to link this with Tony's presentation, because 2 or 3 times he said, how stupid can we be? And I think one of the things that we have not been able to transmit or to tell is how important nature is for life. Because, for example, in the very recent electoral process in Mexico, by which we elected our new president on July 1st, there were all kinds of subjects in the process. The economy, financial matters, labor, education, drug cartels, you name it. But the environment was not there. It was not part of the discussion. There were no events related to environmental matters. So what I want to say with this is that the environment is as important or more than all those subjects. Because if nature is not okay, the other things will not happen. No? But we have not been able to transmit this to legislators, to policy makers, to public officials, to a lot of people out there. So I wanted to ask Tony and make a reflection here. What has to happen, because we're just going the other direction. We depend on nature, but we're doing everything to disrupt nature. So what I want to say with this is that we're going against ourselves, and I don't see a change. So, of course, it has to do a lot with enforcement, but probably this is more philosophical, but I don't know, I wanted to put it.
Well, I'll Tony respond, but it seems to me one of the reasons that the Supreme Court of the Philippines established the new judicial procedures in the writ of Kalikasan was because in the Philippines, as Tony said, this is no longer an option when entire villages are buried under the mudslide because the hills are not protected by the forests anymore. You have to dig people out of their homes. I mean, this is a tragedy that's growing worse every day. And so I found it extraordinary that the Supreme Court would shift the burden of proof. Under the writ of Kalikasan, if you allege that they're violating the law, they have to come and show how they're not violating the law, how they're in compliance with the law. Now, whether the courts can handle that's another question.
How do we change our thinking? First, impressive. You see, when you talk, that you say that you're an environmentalist. On my way here, in the airplane, I was seated with a man. He said, "What do you do?" And then he said, I said, "Well, I'm an environmental lawyer." And he said, "Oh, all those green stuff. Oh, like the tree and the wind." And I mean, you're almost taken as marginal. You're always marginalized. That you're a hippie or something. That is why I always, even with judges, even with politicians, I emphasize it. I first ask them, "You stand up. What do you mean by environment?" And then they say, "Huh? Oh, surrounding. About the tree? Yes. About the birds? Yes." And no, it is about life, because without that water, there is no life. You have, as you said, you have to equate the environment to life. Then it becomes, then everything will be done in our power to protect and restore those basic elements of life, those basic sources of life. How am I trying to do this? Well, short of talking myself blue, I've established a school of the sea, where I was just going to tell Jay, if we're going to, I have this wonderful curriculum in the School of the Sea. It's just a training center, a beautiful place in the beach, where everybody who goes there fetches their own water, disposes their own garbage, turns off all the lights that are not in use. In other words, practicing what we preach. Why do I ask you to, I mean, I don't care. One was a senator recently, I said, to fetch your own water. Because that makes you, that you fetch your own water from a well. That makes you understand that if you pollute that, or if that dries up, then there is no more life. I mean, simple things like that. You dispose your own garbage. It's mind shifting, and I'm, targeted. I'm tired of talking to my generation. I'm targeting kids now, grade 6 and below. Next week they have a class. I was able to get the Department of Education to assign teachers. But you see, we have to equate environment to life. Because once we're able to impress that, then everything else becomes easy.
May I just add one comment? I think Nick knows the difficulty our center has had since our establishment, because Singapore is very small, we do not have environmental problems. And we have had great difficulty in getting recognition from what I call the powers that be, because as lawyers, when the law school offers subject, they usually offer what is called bread and butter subjects. And when our students go for interview, they'll be asked, what subjects do you take? Company law, good. Banking, good. Environmental law? Is there environmental law in Singapore? So they've come up with this, oh, it's not a bread and butter subject. And I always tell my students, well, I think it's more than bread and butter. It's about life itself. And without life, it's not only your current generation, but your future generation. So as lawyers, they always talk about money, how to practice, what's practical. So I think this is what we lawyers come up against, particularly in Singapore, when you talk about developed countries and all that. But I think one more thing in response to what was said just now, I think this is an opportune time to tell the world how important environment is, because we are seeing it, we are seeing climate change. And very few people see the link between climate change, water security, food security, biodiversity. Everything is linked. And now that we witness in our own region floods in Thailand and so on, that I think it is an opportune time. And now even among scientists, they have now at last agreed on the whole that it is due to human activity that you get your present position untouched.
I was wondering if it would be a good exercise to kind of list the concerns and start to see how to address them. For example, all these things about geographic distances, or how to produce evidence, or to have experts. Do you think it's possible to kind of start doing like this exercise of trying to address these things?
Sure. I mean, I think we're seeing two levels of concern arise in the discussion so far. One is the practical aspects of if we're going to have better courts, better court decision making, what are these issues that have to be addressed? And the other question, which Gustavo, I think, really began us thinking about is, well, if there's not a social sense that this is an important subject, the courts aren't going to take it seriously either. We're against a trend, and therefore maybe one of the things we need to do is emphasize